Today I'm going to show you how to bind off knitwise. So if you're learning how to knit, you've learned how to cast on, you've learned the knit stitch, possibly the purl stitch, and maybe a few other skills, and now you're ready to take that project off the needles so you can enjoy what you've made. My name's Amanda, and on this channel, I like to share with you what I've made, what I'm making and want to make, as well as tips and tricks that have helped me along the way. If you're enjoying my content, please think about subscribing to my channel, liking this video, and check out my playlist of tutorials for foundational knitting skills. Let's get on with binding off knitwise. So once you've finished your project, you're ready to do something we call binding off, and that simply means getting your stitches off of your needle in a way that so it won't unravel. So if I pulled all of these off this needle right now and I pulled this yarn, it would unravel all of my stitches. So here is a very basic bind off. I'm going to be binding off knitwise. So we're simply going to insert the right needle just like we're going to knit. We're going to knit 2 stitches, and then with my tip of my left needle I'm going to insert it in front of my right needle on the stitch that's furthest right on my right hand needle. I'm going to keep this stitch on the needle. Sometimes you can hold that with your fingertip if you need to, and you're simply going to pass that stitch over. So I've bound off my first stitch. Then we're going to knit another and do the same thing. Insert the tip of the left needle in front of the right on the stitch that is most to the right on that right hand needle, and then pass over. And right here you can see I'm holding tension with my yarn to keep that stitch on. If you feel like it's wanting to come off, you can secure that stitch with your right fingertip. So things to remember as you're binding off. I'm a tight knitter, so I have to remember that my bind off will be a little bit tighter than my cast on most of the time. So I just have to be mindful that I'm not binding off too tight, because if I were trying to make this square, what would happen is that my bind off stitches might not be as elastic as my cast on stitches, and I might get a little bit wonky of the shape. But there you go. That is just a very basic bind off that works well for most of your projects. I almost hightailed it out of here without showing you how to completely finish your project once you've bound off. When you get to the last 2 stitches, you'll do what you've been doing all along, slipping the furthest one on the right hand needle over the other one, and then take your needle, hold your fabric here at the corner, and pull your needle up so you've got a nice long loop. Slip your needle out, and then I take my scissors and I put the loop out of the way and I clip the tail of the yarn on the other side, and then finish pulling it through. That secures your last stitch. The next step is to take your darning needle. This one has a nice large eye. This is worsted weight yarn, so it should go through here pretty well. If your project has a back side and a front side, I like to sew my end in on the back side in case your yarn leaves a little extra bulk. It won't be showing on the front facing. So to keep an elastic edge, what I like to do is kind of follow the loops around. So you can follow loops around, or you can just go straight through. But here I'm going to come back through. This loop is a little bit large, so I'm going to come through that in order to snug it up. Let me get a little bit better in camera here. And for me, it's okay if you split the yarn a little bit, but when you're new, try not to split the yarn because you may want to take it out. If you weave the ends in, here I'm going to just kind of go back and forth. There's lots of different ways to do this. Just have to find the way you like. And again, don't weave them in super tight. Snug them up. Here I split the yarn a little bit. Snug them up so they look nice. And here you can see this acrylic yarn is a little bit old, so you can see how it left that untidy. I can come back and tidy that up if I want, but I come down about an inch, inch and a half, and then I go back the other way just to make it more secure. And I'm going to see if I can maybe pretty that stitch up just a little bit. That, well, it's just going to look a little bit like that, but that's why I like to weave the ends in on the back side of the yarn. If I turn that over, you can't see that. So that was a good, happy little mistake on my part. And then after that, you will just trim that yarn close. And then you would go on to weave in any other ends that you have that are loose.